Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining 𝗓𝗍𝘗𝑆 Elite Knowledge Session that we conduct bi-monthly now. So earlier we were doing 4 times in a month, but now it's going to be twice in a month because there are a lot of physical events also happening. So last week we had a session with Microsoft, and today we have a session with Netskope and Vijay from Netskope, who is a cybersecurity specialist. With Netskope, he's going to talk about data protection using cloud-centric approach, right? Lately, we have seen a lot of sessions around cloud security and all. So this session, Vijay will focus on data protection using cloud-centric approach. So from the agenda perspective, as you see, it's a quick introduction as we do of a speaker. It's a very high-level intro. I just tell the name because I believe that speaker can do a better justice with their introduction. So when I pass it on to Vijay, he will do a longer introduction and talk about his experience and his role at Netskope. And then we will have about 40-45 minute session with Vijay. And then at the end, we will save about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. I will share the CP secret to download your participation certificate. We will have Wheel of Fortune, and the giveaway are 3 sound bars. That's what we will give. And then last but not the least, the stand and attend we give in every single session. And this is the screen I show every time that, okay, if you sit, you are going to have all this problem. If you're going to stand, you will have all these benefits. But instead of just showing you the slides today, I plan to play a very quick 1 minute video as well for you guys. So pay attention to this video. It's a very short video, and what it talks about it, you may be doing a lot of fitness workout, right? You may be going to gym, you may be doing a marathon as well. But again, if you're sitting a lot, all those is defeated. So doing your exercise is one part of it. And the second part is, the another part is that you are standing and not sitting throughout the day. Right. So in this session for at least 1 hour, we give this challenge that you should stand while you're attending this session. So let me quickly play this video and then we'll see how many of you accept this challenge. So hopefully the sound should be there. Let's see.
Now, instead of sitting, you may want to think about getting out of your chair.
Absolutely. Turns out Alabama's in the top 10 for the states of folks who sit the most. According to fitness experts, sitting for more than a half hour begins to slow down a person's metabolism. Sitting for more than 10 hours a day puts a person at risk for a lot of things: heart disease, diabetes, stroke, obesity, even cancer. You might sit a lot at work, but be active otherwise. Experts say that won't protect you from these health problems.
And sitting is an independent risk factor. So practically what that means is you could train for a marathon, but if you sit for more than 10 hours a day, you're still going to have a higher risk of getting those health problems.
Health professionals recommend using desks that adjust to allow people to stand. And if that's not an option, they recommend taking short breaks every half hour just to take a few steps around the office.
Great. So you see, guys, that even if you're preparing for marathon, that's not going to benefit, right? You should not be sitting a lot, right? Whether you're working from home or working from office, we tend to sit a lot. So that's what we are trying to change from past almost 3 years now. So the challenge is you guys should stand a lot, right? Whether you're working from home or working from office. So if you accept this challenge of standing for next 1 hour while you're attending this session, go to the chat and say yes, that you're accepting this challenge. I'm not sure whether Vijay is standing or not. Is he accepting this challenge?
I'm sitting.
So again, it is. I'm trying to bring this awareness in the community because as IT professional, we tend to sit a lot. That's what we got to change. Okay, I see a lot of yes coming in. If you have been attending 𝗓𝗍𝘗𝘆 webinar, you know that we give this challenge every single time. But if you are getting to know about it for the very first time, make it a practice. Stand whether you are in home or you are at office. So you can take all those benefits. With this, let me transfer it over to Vijay. Vijay, let's dive into your session and then be cognizant of the time. We got to finish this by 11:50 so that we have some time for Q&A. Over to you.
Definitely. Thanks, Vikas. So let me share my screen and then I'll do a little bit of introduction about me, and then I'll get into the topic. So let me just share this. I hope everyone is able to view my screen.
Yeah, it's visible.
Perfect, will do. So just to introduce myself, I'm Vijay Bhat. I work as a cybersecurity specialist for Netskope. Been with the system for close to 3 years now. So it's like when Netskope came into India, so I was the 5th employee from a sales marketing standpoint. So today, the topic which I'm going to talk about is around data loss protection. I'm sure that everyone out over here has gone through this DLP journey in the past, as well as with the existing organization. But things have changed a lot in last 2.5 years. Of course, definitely the approach, the mindset which organizations, CISOs, CIOs are thinking about in terms of adopting cloud in a big way. So once everything started moving on the from a cloud native perspective, the challenges also have shifted. So maybe a situation can arise. The existing DLP solution might not be giving the full, much needed visibility of how the information is today moving across different channels. So I'll try to cover all those elements. As I said, these are the topics which I'll be trying to emphasize on. So what are the new challenges which organizations are facing today in terms of data movement? And predominantly it is with so much expansion of SaaS applications. So how is the data is moving between different cloud applications, and why the traditional approach is failing? Similarly, I will be also emphasizing a little bit on private applications. So I'm pretty sure everyone is talking about the ZTNA or network private access kind of scenario, where the data is also given access to your end users as well as contractors. So can I get that much needed visibility? So earlier in a traditional approach, it was completely outside of the DLP scope, and there were other solutions to handle these kinds of problems. So I'm trying to emphasize a little bit on those techniques and technologies, how we can ensure data protection can be of these private applications can be added into the whole framework of SSE also. So I'll run through the legacy DLP architecture and what are the business challenges, and how Netskope is basically able to help their customers in this data-centric journey from a fully cloud-native infrastructure, trying to touch base on different use cases, which is very important in today's context. And finally, the zero trust protection, data protection framework, where we are moving away from a traditional approach, which was more static, and trying to become much more dynamic with integrated incident management with cloud native and cloud native vendors for quick incident investigation analysis. So this is basically what the topic is. So next, maybe around about 40 minutes, I'm just going to talk about the agenda which I have set, and then I open up for Q&A. So first thing is, of course, data is king. Now the thing is, as I said, that everyone has gone through this journey of DLP in the past as well as the current organizations, and every business has at least 10 to 15 crown jewels within the organizations. So maybe if I look at BFSI, it would be more to related to PI aspects of it. If I try to look at in manufacture, it would be drawing, but then there can be manufacturing, marketing documents, which will be common across all the business verticals. So of course, data is the king. But what is the challenge now, which we are seeing in today's context? First, with pandemic hitting us, so the thing is, the entire workforce has completely split. So earlier it was, I would say, almost 90 to 100%, which was there on premise. But today there is a flexibility which has been given by organization to work remotely also. So it's a complete hybrid workflow, which workforce which we have within the organization. Similarly, the way of moving the data has also changed. So earlier it was pretty much within the four walls as well as the endpoint systems. But today, with so many SaaS applications, IaaS application, private application, which is there directly onto the internet side of it. So data has started moving across these different platforms. And the traditional DLP solution is not able to address all the business problems of today. So that is again a new trend which we have seen and how the data shift is happening. Similarly, as I already mentioned, the spike in terms of cloud adoption. So the bigger problem today is the shadow IT problem. So where is my data moving? How is the data moving? Is it moving to a good application, or is it moving to application which has a bad reputation in the market? So am I getting that much needed context from the new age solution? So those are the areas which is very, very important in today's context. And very important is data is exploded. So gone are those days where everything was, which is, as I said, within the data centers, or maybe I'm creating a data on my systems. But today, since so much application which is there, it could be a Microsoft application, Google, GitHub, Atlassian, and so forth. So a lot of data which is being created directly onto the cloud, and this there has been a lot of explosion of data, I would say, and primarily the data is born today in a cloud perspective of it. So almost 80% of the data will be pretty much unstructured, and by 2025, you'll be seeing a lot of data which is going to explode from a cloud native perspective. Now, getting into the hybrid workforce, as I said, once the pandemic hit, we saw a lot of shift happening in terms of accessing the applications. So organizations started using multiple SaaS applications. Of course, Office 365 was one of them. But then there can be Salesforce, Slack, development team started using maybe the BI, Power BI, GitHub, Atlassian, and many more applications. So data started moving directly onto the cloud perspective of it. Then a lot of information moving on the web perspective of it. Organizations started using Azure, AWS, Google, and other Oracle and multiple other IS platform. So data started moving in this platform also. And then again, since we are collaborating with each other, you will have your customers, you will have your partners, and they will also be accessing these corporate applications which belongs to your organization. And again, there is a data movement which is happening from the remote workforce standpoint. Could be your end users, or it could be the contractors also. So technically now the data kept on starting moving from one cloud application to another cloud applications, and it completely messed up the whole approach of the traditional DLP solution. While it is doing its job, which is it is intended for, but it has opened up a lot of more blind spots which organization is not fully aware of. So that is the area of focus which we need to have today in terms of getting that much needed visibility. And once you have the visibility, you can start building controls across different channels. So again, what is the challenge? The challenges which we face with the traditional approach, and with expansion or explosion of a data, which I would like to. So there are a lot of data which is there today, moving across different application, different channels. So similarly, data is just not in form of text, PDFs, words, but even in form of images. So if it is very organization which is very specific on looking at PI data, we'll have the from an India context perspective, it will be the Aadhaar data, PAN card data, passport information, driving license, and so on and so forth. Similarly, across you will see a lot of information which is moving in their own format to the external as well as third party parties. Similarly, from where is the data being accessed? So is it just today in today's context? As I said, it's just not a corporate device, but there can be a situation where I might use my home laptop to connect onto the SaaS application, private applications. You will have your contractors, your partners who will be accessing from their systems onto to your applications. So the thing is very important to understand is whenever we are having this overall DLP conversation, so how can I ensure that the accuracy is pitch perfect? Similarly, how can I help you reduce the false positives? As well as can we ensure that whenever a DLP incident handler is working on to DLP tickets, he'll be focusing on the right DLP incidents. So these are the technical challenges which I'm pretty sure everyone has gone through in part of a DLP journey. So how we can basically go ahead and address these problem statements or using a cloud native approach. So I'm going to talk about it in subsequent slides. So shortcomings of the traditional DLP technologies. So definitely, so it was pretty much on-premise. It depends upon the from an architecture standpoint. It was very complex. So if you had multiple proxies deployed, so then you need to have multiple systems. So it was very resource intensive. So you need to have too many hardware, software, the storages to fulfill the requirement of a network DLP or an endpoint DLP. Similarly, managing those. So the thing is, again, since we are having so many moving elements. So for email, I need to have a separate component. For web, I need to have an ICAP integration, again, a separate component. Then if there is a DCDR kind of requirement, again, you double up those investment of managing the hardware, software, and storages. So technically, when I started looking at it, it was very complex. And when it came to, again, on the upgrade side of it, so maybe the new releases will come up with some new features. But again, since everyone has a possibly endpoint DLP, so technically pushing that clients in today's hybrid workforce, that also becomes a technical challenge to the business. So the legacy DLP solutions, while it is running it in its space, but it has its own set of limitations today. So again, just to give an architecture view of how this typically looks like. So I hope team is able to view my screen. Yeah. So it was pretty much on-premise. You had a manager, you have a database to invest. You have too many of hardwares which you need to manage with your existing on-premise proxies. Too many data which is there to discover on-premise, and you need to have the agents deployed cut across all the endpoint systems. Now this thing is slowly and steadily moving away. Now I'll just try to take one piece at a time. Every organization today in almost the last 2.5 years has started adopting a cloud proxy. So it could be us, it could be my competition, and so on and so forth. So the earlier adoption of integrating 𝗖𝗹𝗶𝗴 is completely gone. So there is no way a cloud native solution and on-premise DLP solution will marry with each other because of a lot of complexities, lot of disconnects, as well as the performance which is getting impacted. Similarly, in today's context, as I already mentioned, that a lot of SaaS application which has been accessed, and users are directly interacting with the application rather than working on the endpoint and moving that information. So I can create a file directly on a OneDrive, Google Drive, Slack, and so on and so forth. Directly edit a file, and that's it. I can save my content. And endpoint DLP is not going to monitor any of these activities, and it's completely blind spot for a traditional DLP solution. So that is one thing. As I said, the web DLP aspects of it has completely gone out of place with this new approach of everyone trying to adopt the cloud native solution. Similarly, data is not born today on-premise. It's predominantly everything on the drives. So as I said, organizations who adopted OneDrive, or organizations who adopted Google Drive and other SaaS applications. So we create the content there and there itself, and then start moving across on the endpoints and to other cloud applications. And similarly, from a USB standpoint, that every organization has started using all the 𝗍𝗽 EDR technologies. So every EDR solution has the way of controlling the USBs as well as the different ports, Bluetooth and multiple other ports, which basically cuts down the element of data getting exfiltrated on an endpoint channel. So only limited use cases, maybe for top users within the organizations, or maybe mid-management, possibly who might be having access to USBs where the data can move. So the endpoint DLP use case is also pretty much getting cut down, and organizations have started using VDIs also. So the thing is, once the user connects onto a VDI, again, then there's no scope of data getting exfiltrated from that infrastructure onto the endpoint device systems also. So that's basically things have changed over a period of last 2.5 years, which we have seen. So the practical problems, as I said, too many hardwares, too many software, too many storage solutions with a legacy DLP deployment approach. So just trying to basically cut it in these 4 aspects. So whenever we used to talk about the network DLP, first thing, the challenge which we typically look at is it's the blind to activities to multiple SaaS IaaS private applications. So it is just not about uploads and downloads today. But as I said, I can do a direct editing directly onto the SaaS applications, or I can directly post the data directly onto the SaaS applications, or I can share the data directly from the SaaS application. So these areas becomes a complete blind spot to a network DLP. We don't know how the information is moving to the external parties. Similarly, when I say private applications, the VPN-based application, it was always outside of the scope. So in today's context, as I said, there are many applications which has been accessed by your contractors, your customers, which is hosted on web. It could be on-premise, or it could be on your public cloud infrastructure. So how the data is moving across from your application to the system, which is not in your control. So that is also something which was not handled earlier, but that is again a problem statement of today of how the information is moving. Similarly, organizations who have not adopted a culture of conditional access and give access to data of your applications or OneDrive, SharePoint, and any other application from the personal devices. So while you might have certain controls at the endpoint and you will be monitoring the data movement, but that situation might not be true for your personal devices. So if you are given access to the personal devices, I can still connect onto a OneDrive, still connect onto a Teams, SharePoint, and to do the data movement. Similarly, organizations are using their mobile devices. So there is no DLP solution which has a client which resides on a mobile devices. So that again becomes a kind of a problem statement. How are we monitoring data movement happening from mobile devices? So coming back onto the endpoint side of it, as I said, the control is very, very limited to uploads and downloads. That's the primary activity. And the biggest gap of our endpoint DLP is once you upgrade your browser, the endpoint DLP fails. So a situation which might arise in a development kind of a scenario who wants to keep on upgrading their browsers. So DLP will become pretty much ineffective for these kinds of use cases. It can also not look at data exfiltration, which is happening using CLI. So if I'm using a AWS CLI or Git CLI and try to perform certain commands within these different applications, you will be completely blind to these activities of how the data is moving into from these sanctioned applications or data moving onto the unsanctioned applications. So endpoint DLP is not going to address those kinds of specific problems. And again, very important, like as I said, data is not today it's just in form of the text, word, PDFs, and so, but data is also in form of images. So what if I take this image and then move it onto a USB stick? Endpoint DLP does not give a control on data which is moving in form of images. So these are technical limitations of the traditional approach. And maintenance and upgrades, as I already mentioned, that it's kind of pain to organizations. And as I said, like once you want to upgrade, if you plan wants to do an upgrade, there has to be a proper planning in place to upgrade all the different components of a traditional DLP solution, the email gateways, the ICAP servers, the endpoint systems, and then pushing the new MSI onto the endpoint systems. So technically, it has become a challenge. So based on my experience working in this particular space, it usually used to be 1 or 2 upgrades per year across in a traditional DLP approach. And then there is a too much of infrastructure cost, as I already mentioned, storages. So the total cost of ownership was very, very high. ROI, everyone used to deliver it. But again, with so many things, so many data movement today happening across different channels, so possibly the ROI would not be the way it was maybe 3 years or 5 years back. So coming back to Netskope, so what is that? Netskope is basically trying to help organizations deliver DLP from a cloud native perspective of it. So what we have created is this one layer where the entire traffic of the organization, be it the web, be it the SaaS applications, be it the IaaS and applications, Amazon, Azure, Google, similarly private applications, the endpoints, and the email. Every communication, every sessions will be going through Netskope. And once it passes through Netskope, we will be inspecting it for data movement. So whether the data is getting uploaded, data is getting downloaded, data is getting shared to the external parties, data getting posted, so and so forth. There are multiple activities which would be associated with these cloud applications. So we'll look into every aspects of it and help you deliver the much needed data protection from a cloud native world without having hardware. I mean, that's the easiest thing which I said. So there is no hardware investment. Everything is delivered right from that cloud compute which we have built across multiple data centers in India as well as across the globe. So from an India context perspective, because this is something where data protection framework, which is going to improve or scale as time passes by, then you would need to have your data centers in India location itself. So Netskope has 3 data centers today, which is Mumbai, Delhi, and Chennai. And we will have 2 more data centers coming up in next 6 months. And even the management plane. So even your meta information, which is required for analysis purpose, for reporting purpose, will be there in the India location itself. So comprehensive, so 3 areas which I'm going to talk about, and I'll be talking about certain use cases also. So first thing is we are providing a comprehensive coverage cut across all the different channels. So be it data at rest, data in motion, data in use. So all the use cases is delivered from one unified management console. And the agent size, which is hardly just 8 MB, which is very, very lightweight. Second aspects, which I have mentioned, that you need to have a system which can help you give accurate results. So can I reduce the false positive aspects of it? So how are we basically going and detecting all those different forms of data and providing the much needed controls from a data protection standpoint? And as I mentioned that it's a cloud native model, so there is no hardware investment. Everything is managed from cloud. So the investment which you used to do earlier in terms of setting and managing and upgrading those devices, so it's completely cut down. Similarly, you need not push the clients again and again. Since it's cloud native, it will auto upgrade itself to the latest version. So pretty well covered from those elements of it. So what I do now is I try to take one topic and try to cover all those elements. So as I mentioned that from a comprehensive coverage standpoint, so we cover almost every channel which we need to look at today, be it a cloud channel, the web channel, the IES, private apps, email, and endpoint DLP. So all these areas, and how do we do it? Maybe if I say from a SaaS application, user trying to move information on a V transfer, or it could be a situation user trying to leverage, maybe trying to move the information on a PDF converters. So we can look at a situation where we are going to leverage this platform in a forward proxy mode. Similarly, a SaaS application, which is like your corporate O365, if it has been given to your end users as well as your partners, we will leverage a reverse proxy mode of deployment where the data movement on these applications is also pretty well taken care of. And then we have a situation where you already have a lot of data which is there on your cloud storages. So historically, you have sent that data to the external parties and still it is kept open. So if I want to do a data governance check on these SaaS applications or IaaS applications, so we do a API scan, that is a data at rest scan, giving you insights where your sensitive data is, how it was sent in the past, and today, even if you're sending it to the external parties, can I have those API remediation action in place? So maybe I can delete the data or maybe quarantine or apply IRM templates as part of the deployment. The next element, I'm pretty sure most of them have some of the other network DLP. But if you feel that if I want to go with one unified approach of having the solutions, so we can also look at SMTP channel. So organizations who have adopted O365 and Google and trying to send the data, so we can intercept the email traffic also and apply the headers so that the MTA solutions like O365 Mimecast and so can read that headers and then go ahead and block that kind of email to the external domains. So we have that layer also, which is covered. And then the endpoint use case where the data is moving in form of a USB stick. So we are running a beta right now where to get into that space. So by October, we will have the endpoint DLP also released to our customers. So technically what we are trying to do is, as I said, we are trying to cover almost every element or every channel today where the end users are working. So that's again a differentiating point which we are trying to bring in. So when I try to look at from different situations, from today's context, as I said, a lot of SaaS application which has been accessed. So a traditional DLP solution vendors were looking at only limited channels like upload, download, posting, chatting on limited applications. But in today's context, what Netskope brings into the table is looking at around about 80 plus different activities within the applications. So what, as I said, it is not that I just need data, actual data to move, upload and download for DLP, but I can leverage certain activities directly onto the application to do a data exfiltration. So when I said, as I mentioned earlier, I will just open up a OneDrive, directly open a file, maybe manually type a content or take a copy of data and move it over there and paste it. And the DLP solution, endpoint DLP solution is not even able to detect this. So the thing is, edit as an activity can happen today across hundreds of such applications. So if I can edit the file directly onto the application, which is not in your control, data can automatically get exfiltrated. Similarly, a situation where I can share the data. So if I have given access to maybe a public cloud storage or maybe a collaboration tools which has sharing rights, I can just share it to my personal ID. I'm using Microsoft Teams. Not sure if there are strict policies in your Microsoft platform, but if I can just open up Microsoft Teams, I can invite it to my personal Gmail address, so I can give access to my SharePoint online also. So there can be many such situations which we can possibly think of in terms of different activities which can happen today onto the cloud application perspective of it, and then create a situation that where I can limit the way of doing a data exploitation attempt. So that is something which is a strong element which Netskope brings in, much needed context and content visibility across 80 plus activities. And then once you have an awareness, you can start building granular access controls. Again, the next problem statement which we see today is instance awareness problem. Now, in your organization, you might be using a corporate O365 or a corporate Google Drive or GitHub and so on and so forth. So the thing, and as an end user, since we are in a collaborative world, you might be accessing the partner's OneDrive, and certain set of users might have their own OneDrive instance or any other cloud application instance. So typically what will happen is whenever a user is trying to perform an activity, let him do a full activity on his corporate applications. But if there are certain activities which is happening on the partner instance, just restrict it. Because if this opens up and I am able to do certain activities, there is always a risk of data getting exfiltrated. And the third situation, if someone is accessing their personal instances of OneDrive, just a strict no-no from a business standpoint. So what will happen is now your data will only move into your corporate instance. And if they are trying to leverage any other instances of Microsoft, or it could be any other shared IT applications, we will ensure that the data does not get exfiltrated. Only the users who are intended to do their work, let them do it, but with a kind of an email notification back to the SOC team that there are certain activities which has happened, which is risky in nature. Kindly have a look at it from a forensic standpoint. So those are the elements which can definitely help you, the organizations today in giving the visibility and controls. The next element, as I said, where so the thing is, once you access your corporate OneDrive, SharePoint, you can share the data to the external parties. So you can build up a policy that sharing has to be with only limited set of email address or domains. And if it is going to the external parties, ensure you have the API approach of scanning the data and having a visibility and then control that if accidentally I've shared it to some of the external parties, which I should not have done in first place, then maybe remove the sharing permission. So the thing is, even if the user is now again trying to connect back onto the application, even if he has a sharing link, he will not be able to access that. So all those things which we can definitely look from a cloud application standpoint. Next use case in terms of the contractors, end users, where you don't have an agent on the end user systems. So users can access their SaaS applications from personal devices. Users can access their private applications from their personal devices. So what we can ensure today is even if they are trying to access, monitor their upload, download, sharing, and every activities. But if someone is trying to download a sensitive data, then either block it or notify it to the SOC team. So that basically helps organizations meet their data governance approach within the organizations. And similarly, a lot of information, just like a SAP or something, maybe if you have an agent which is deployed today on the unmanaged device or devices which is not in your control. So technically, you are given the rights to download even the information of SAP onto the unmanaged device. And from here, the user can do whatever he wants to do. So what we can have maybe for highly business critical applications which needs to be given access, we can create a kind of a web RDP, web SSH kind of a scenario. So where the users will directly hit onto the RDP systems using web as a layer. Once you reach there, user cannot copy or user cannot move the data from that web instance onto the unmanaged devices. So you can ensure those kinds of approaches can also be leveraged today from a ZTNA perspective of it to control that data movement onto the unmanaged devices. Finally, the email protection, I'm pretty sure today every organization might be using it in some other way. But if you want to move into one cloud native world, so that is the way we can look at. So the business challenges, one thing is you will be using your corporate Outlook or mail client to sync with your Outlook account. So two use case. First is if someone is trying to sync it onto their personal emails, which is @outlook.com. So we can just go ahead and restrict that. So no one can connect onto their personal domains and sync it onto your onto the corporate assets. So that is the first use case. The second use case is where you're connecting back to your corporate email, and once they connect, they will have to forward that mail or send that mail using the connectors to the Netscope compute. So once it hits over here, we will apply the tag that this is a sensitive file. And if this is a sensitive file, it should be either blocked, it should be either quarantined. And what we can do is we can give the tag and send it back to O365, send it back to maybe a third party MTA like Mimecast, Proofpoint, Cisco, and so on and so forth, who will read the headers and then take action that this data should not go to the external recipients. So the thing is, what we are trying to do is we have created this framework, or I would say a compute across the globes, where the data in form of email traffic will hit us. We will scan it, and we will apply the tag and give it back to the O365 platform, or maybe the next hop, which is there in place in front of us. So we can have those kind of real-time email protection using the cloud native approach. And finally, the next element is the endpoint DLP. So that was the one missing piece which we had today. So we are in beta right now, and in October we will have the GA for the endpoint DLP aspect. So the use case, as I said, maybe certain set of users where the USBs are open, or we feel that print is also a channel through which the data can be exfiltrated. Or maybe I can have a external network attached storage to which the data can go, or a LAN endpoint LAN perspective. So there can be multiple situations on the USB or on the endpoint side of it. So even if the data now starts moving these in the endpoint side of it, we can go ahead and control that. So as I said, October is the GA. So technically, as I said, we have covered all the different channels now, the web, the email, and finally the endpoint aspect of it. So again, the agent size is not very huge. So today it is just 8 MB. With endpoint DLP, we will just add more 10 MB. So 20 MB, which will take care of your entire different forms of use cases from a DLP standpoint. So from a coverage, as I said, so today there are other vendors also, but there are certain limitations in a few vendors who are offering this kind of solution. But Netskope is able to do it pretty holistically. So that's something which is the advantage. And again, as I said, technically for other cloud vendors, they would not get into this discussion of blind spots. So again, as I said, you can do many activities directly onto a cloud applications, and data can be exfiltrated. So we can help you with those different forms of use cases once we possibly get into some sort of a demonstration. Similarly, high degree of data protection efficacy. So as I said, every organization, the most common problem which we typically look at is there are a lot of data and a lot of false positives. So can we basically look at reducing those aspects of it, and how do we do it? So we have a lot of templates which we have built over a period of, as I said, 10 years in this particular space. So a lot of identifiers cut across different geolocations. So from India perspective, we already have insight of the names associated with the India context perspective. We have Aadhaar card, we have PAN card, we have passports, and so on and so forth. Similarly, the next element is around the ML classifications. So which is much more accurate than the OCR aspects of it, because OCR can lead to a lot of false positives. But we have created that model of ML classifiers where it is almost 98% accurate. So I know if someone is trying to upload Aadhaar card, PAN card, passports, or maybe a PII data. So we know that this is, if someone is trying to move this information, we already have a lot of classifiers, which is pretty well built in. Then we have approach like fingerprinting, we have regular expressions, keyword-based policies, and so on and so forth. So the thing is, we give a lot of weightage to ensure that the results are much more accurate compared to the problem statements of the past. So as I said, almost 3,000 classifiers, 40 plus predefined templates, 25 7 plus ML classifiers, and this number keeps on increasing with every releases. And the policies can be applied across all different channels, be it in inline mode or API mode, or maybe users coming from managed device, unmanaged device, or maybe users trying to move information onto their corporate or personal instances everywhere. So it's just that, as I said, just take data as a medium and try to look at different channels and start applying cut across different areas within the framework. Finally, again, compared to other players in the market and Netskope, so the biggest area, as I said, the differentiator which we try to bring in is with the ML classifiers, as well as building it with zero trust framework. So I'll be talking about it. What does zero trust framework is, and what is that differentiating value which we try to get in. Finally, easy to deploy. Everything is managed from cloud. So as I said, maybe once I spin off that tenant for you, your DLP is ready. I need not do too many changes within my infrastructure, build an infrastructure, so on and so forth. Everything is fully cloud native. So ensuring that same management console, unified agent, which is, as I said, today 8 MB with endpoint DLP, it might come to around about 20 MB. So everything managed right from the cloud. So it's very, very easy to manage from a solutioning standpoint. So as I said, comparing with this and look at this, the infrastructure which is used to build a legacy DLP infrastructure. So as I said, very, very effortless and affordable from a business and saves a lot of cost and time. So that's so in a whole, as I said, when we look at the overall integrated aspects of it, so we have this zero trust engine, data protection, very important, giving you the much needed visibility in terms of forensic, how the information is moving across, and correlate that information that this data is moving in web, email, and so application, which all those application, is it a Google, WeTransfer or converters, and what are the actions which has been taken. So a complete, very good analytics view of how the data movement is happening, cut across different channels. And then we have multiple frameworks. So in terms of the data moving, in terms of the SaaS, in terms of a web, in terms of private applications. So that's basically the integrated approach. And there are other solutions of ours also, which can be looked in this overall journey. So every piece of data protection is linked in some or the other way with different modules. So DLP on the web, DLP on the application, DLP on the RBI layer, where I cannot do certain activities on the SaaS or a web applications. DLP, which can also go on to a firewall as a service, maybe if you are using FTP. So those things are in roadmap, but we'll cover those elements also if the data is moving in terms of FTP, SFTP, and so on and so forth. DLP going at data on your private applications, DLP going on your SaaS as well as IaaS applications. So everything pretty well in one unified approach from a cloud native perspective of it. So I have 5 more minutes, so I'll just try to cover the new journey to data protection framework. So earlier we used to have a clear approach where we used to define a policy, do data discovery, and that's it. But data keeps on changing. Users' way of accessing their data keeps on changing. So the thing is, it didn't had that kind of a layer where it used to keep on revisiting that whole loop of how users are accessing the data. So is it from a managed device? Is it from a risky location? Is it from an unmanaged device? So the thing is, all these things is kind of additional attributes which is required to do a continuous assessment. What if my system is compromised? What if my account is compromised? And then there is a connectivity onto your sensitive information. You need to have a control in place that point of time. That if someone is coming from a risky location, probably don't give access to that applications. Or if I see user Vijay is trying to has become more smarter, so probably he has downloaded all his information from the cloud storage and started moving on a WeTransfer. So of course there is a risk associated. Why is this behavior? So there's a continuous assessment in terms of how the users is trying to interact with the data, And if we feel that user has turned out to be rogue now because of the risk score, we will automatically change the way of accessing the application. So earlier I used to upload the data on my personal Google Drive, but this time when I try to upload it, it will prompt me to justify my act. Or if a user is trying to come from an unmanaged device trying to access that particular Google Drive, probably I'll not allow him to even access that application in first place. So the thing is, this whole aspect of relearning it continuously and applying the policies adaptively is something which is a new way of handling the data protection. So that's very important to move in this area. So as I said, there will be a lot of insights. It's just not about the content of a data, but other elements also, which is very important in building the zero trust data protection. So we need to understand his behavior. Where is the information? Where is the user coming from? Is it coming from a managed or an unmanaged device? What are the kinds of activities which users keeps on performing on a cloud applications? All these elements is something which will give us a kind of a user risk score. And once we have the user risk score, we can start building new policies. We can build adaptive policies. We see a risk of a user going haywire, we can start giving a kind of a education to the end users why you are trying to do it. If you are doing it genuinely, justify your act. If you are uploading information on your personal instance, justify your act. So you are pretty well covered from that data governance framework perspective of it. Similarly, as I said, whatever activities which we are performing from the end users or from systems to the data, there's a risk score associated. Now, it could be, as I said, could be a situation where I'm able to see a lot of files which is getting downloaded. I'm able to try to access that application using my iPhone personal device and so on and so forth. So this whole aspect is going to basically give us a score. And if I'm able to look at the score which is very risky, adaptively change the policies. That's basically the framework which we are working on zero trust data protection framework. Similarly, incident workflow management. So how quickly we can ensure maybe we can mitigate those data threats. So what we can do is we can send all the events back to a SIEM SOAR, and every SOAR technology today, maybe if we see a enterprise user risk to score, we can ingest that score or maybe take the risky user as part of a separate group in AD and apply a adaptive policy out over here. So that's one element which we can definitely do. Next is integrate with your ticketing tool, ServiceNow, Jira, and multiple, and then you can have your incident workflow management from this platform also. And if I are able to see some critical alerts within your organizations, immediately send a alert back onto your Microsoft Teams and Slack, so the incident handler can start working rather than waiting for information coming from a ticketing tool or a SIM or SOAR tool. So it is very instantive, and then you can start working on the trying to close that. If we feel that certain policies are open, you can quickly go ahead and close that channel so that data doesn't get exfiltrated. So those elements which we can definitely help you out with. So whole idea. So how can we reduce the different risk surface cut across different channels? So maybe start looking at a situation that where your data is moving today. So we can help you with the shadow IT risk usage. And then based on that, try to look at if someone is moving the data onto a risky application, block it. If your users are performing risky activities within the application, probably educate them or block it. Or users coming from unmanaged devices, take a call whether users should be able to download it and alert it back to the SOC team. Or maybe if you want to block it for a certain set of users, just go ahead and block it. Ensure sharing activities across multiple applications. You can design that this is the trusted domains, rest of the domains are not so trusted. So just go ahead and block it across multiple applications. And apply restriction based on users' profile. So if I see users turning out to be risky, probably I have start applying more restrictive controls. So those are elements which we can definitely help. We can think of in terms of looking at DLP cut across all different channels and leverage more access control policies. So finally, very important, the maturity is good once it starts getting applied. So these are the areas which we continuously follow. So the thing is, visibility has to be on top. So we need where information is going across or different channels, and then implement those. Start with basic controls. Start basically getting into programs where we start educating users. So today, if users are trying to upload it onto a PDF or file converters, let them educate that they should not be able to, they should not do these certain activities within the corporate environment. And then start adding more controls from a risk perspective of it. Whenever you perform all these activities, first three steps, start getting more a little bit more restrictive. And then there has to be a continuous assessment, which, as I said, that continuously you learn, unlearn, learn, unlearn, and start adapting the adaptive policies. So that's basically the framework which we can adopt today in the organizations from a business standpoint. So thank you, everyone. I hope I was able to convey the message to all of you in trying to be a little bit simple with use cases. So over to the team for Q&A. I'll take up those questions.
Great session, Vijay. So we are at 11:53. Probably we can take maybe 2 questions. So guys, if you want to ask question, go to the chat or maybe just raise your hand. I will unmute you. So Gunjan, I'm going to unmute you. Allow mic. Yeah, Gunjan, go ahead. Ask your question now.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hey, thanks. Yeah, thanks for this wonderful session. Quick question. Let's say I already have a traditional DLP solution. When let's say I go ahead with your solution, how easy or difficult it becomes for me to really migrate from one to another?
Yeah, so we have done this because we have multiple scenarios where we have seen traditional vendors using a platform. So there'll be one time. First thing is we'll have to sit and understand. So as I said, we do a certain exercise called as a shadow IT risk. That is one aspect, and also revalidate your existing policies. So whether it is in use or it is not in use. The problem what we see today is we have been using, it's just like creating web policies. I've been doing exceptions. So again, probably revalidate, so maybe take the critical business policies and start migrating it one by one. So it will be an exercise. It's a one-time effort which is required, but we'll sit with you and help you migrate all your existing policies into a platform. So that's something which is an exercise. We'll have our professional services, our experts sitting with you and help you move and migrate into this platform.
Okay, thanks.
Great, sounds good. Santosh, go ahead, ask your question now. Mr. Santosh, go ahead, unmute yourself, ask your question. Great, I think there's some issue and Santosh is not able to unmute. That's about it. I think anybody else? We still have 5 more minutes to go. Yeah, secret for CP is Windows 95, Prakash. Yeah, Dr. Rajan, I was kind of wondering where are you today? So go ahead, ask your question.
Very happy afternoon. Thank you so much, Vijay. DLP has been a painful journey for everybody. It's not something which is pretty easy because every of my colleagues would not agree with me. But I'll quickly come to you on the use case that you took it for the email. So I'm a true believer that unless you perform a risk assessment and decide what is required for a business, don't do any control, which becomes more like adding more medicine for a person who is not ill. All right. But now let us look at it today. The medium-sized organizations and even the larger organizations have started adapting one of the cloud solutions, email. Okay. Now, what is available today in the email when I pick up my business? See, what data that I need to protect must be very, very clear. I should be very clear what data I'm going to protect. Now, currently, the offerings are such that, see, the moment then when I choose an email, say I've gotten secured 𝗖𝗍𝗶 2.0, that's a format, right, in which it is going to be available. Number 2, Do I have the DKIM? This is domain key identifier management available with me. 3, that these mail solutions are coming with an AI where the users are enabled to classify the data before they send it. So over a period of time, the AI is going to start accumulating the knowledge and take a decision that if I'm going to use a sensitive information, then it is going to automatically ensure a high level of 𝗖𝗵𝗁 encryption today, right?
Yeah.
Now, when I have an environment in which also not monitoring the behavioral component, because not human alone, because you got today other applications are also going to use yours, and the services are going to use your kind of stuff. Beyond that, what does DLP do? This is available. This is what my business wants. Beyond this, what does a DLP do?
Exactly. So as you mentioned, we discussed at this point of time, I understand where we are trying to look at email as a channel. But today, email is just not that one channel. Because maybe a few years back when we used to talk, it was, as I said, 70% of the data risk channel is email. But today, with so much cloud being used, so many SaaS applications being used by end users, data can be moved on those channels. Now over here, as I said, even if it's a classified data or maybe users manually classifying data, they are classifying the data onto a content. But what if I give a situation right now? I'm accessing a Google Drive, personal Google Drive. It has been given for business usage, fair enough. I will go directly onto a Google Drive and open a file, a Word file directly out over there and take this content and paste it out over there and data is gone. So what we are trying to help now, we are just not focusing on one channel, but I'm trying to extend that to the entire different channels with access controls. So that is the message. So while we focus on one aspect, because when I say DLP, it is all about content. But what if I'm doing an activity out there onto multiple SaaS applications and I'm not even aware of? So today, the biggest problem what is happening is I'm not even aware of where my information is going across. So I'm trying to help those elements also along with the email aspects.
Okay, that's where I wanted to come in. Thank you so much, because the business will have to first of all assess where the DLP need is. Without naming an organization in code, because millions of dollars that have been spent on DLP, I have to tell the management, please withdraw. So we got to be very precise in terms of where is it required, and why do we need to do it? Because that's where precisely CISO's job is all there. Because one side you have to keep going hitting for money. Other side, if it is not going to be working, then we are accountable for it. So it is very important that we got to correctly identify where is that solution required. On an email, it may not be required. As I already said, now more and more applications start coming in. It might be very important for me to start looking at the behavioral component of what is being transmitted, where and all the data is being stored, and is it going out of me? Where? Yes. Fine. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Great, Dr. Rajan. Great question as always. So I got to rush because it's already 11:59. So guys, if you want to download your participation certificate that looks like it, go to EliteCISOs website, click on events, upcoming events, and click on CP certificate, put your email address, put your full name. And the secret to download the certificate is Windows 95. Why Windows 95? Because 24th August, yesterday, 1995, the Windows 95 was shipped, the very first operating system. I started with Windows 3.11. I mean, I'm pretty old. So if you guys have used Windows 95, please go to the chat and say, yes, you have used, so that we know how old you are. Great. So that's about the how do you download the participation certificate. Now, last but not the least that everybody is kind of waiting for is the Wheel of Fortune. So there are about 397 or 420 registration we received. We removed all the Gmail, Rediffmail, Hotmail IDs from that. I'm going to spin it once. If your name comes, go to the chat and say, yes, you are in this session. Here goes the first one. There will be 2 more spins, and those spins for the people who liked Elite CISO post. So Rajesh, if you are there, go to the chat and say, yes, you are in this session. I'm going to remove this entry. I'm going to delete all these entries from the Wheel of Fortune. And then I'm going to post only the folks who liked Elite CISO's post on LinkedIn. And this is about 102 people. I'm going to spin it once again for the second soundbar giveaway. And it is Mr. Sanjeev. Mr. Sanjeev, if you are there in the session, go to the chat and say yes. Remove this, and now I'm spinning it for the last one. I'm still waiting to see how many people started with Windows 95. So let's see. Dinesh, if you are there, Dinesh from Mumbai chapter. So Dinesh, if you are there in this session, go to the chat and say yes. With this, thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. Vijay, it has been a great session. A lot of questions came in today, right, on chat. So that's amazing. So guys, our next session will be on 15th September with Sophos. As I said, we are just doing 2 sessions in a month now because there are a lot of physical events also happening. So next event or next webinar is on 15th of September. And next would be either 22nd or 29th again with Netskope, right? Because we are doing 1 session with Netskope per month. So that will be the session. So great. Thank you very much, guys, for joining in. And I see in chat, a lot of people have started with Windows 95. So that's great. Amazing, guys. Okay, bye for now. Thank you.